Well, John, we're going to talk about some of the specific player selections. The fact that Kurt Baker's given up sevens, that's going to help his 15 game?
Yeah, I think it will. I think it's a pretty tough thing to do these days, Tom. Actually, it's as we've seen more and more as time goes on, they really are very much becoming specialist games. And the pressure's on a player one way or another, understandably, to focus very heavily on what's required in either game. So it's pretty hard to I think, do it really well across the board. So the great thing is he's made a decision, he wants to focus on the 15s, and we've been pretty happy with his form and a side that's battled ITM Cup and probably certain areas of his game that may have had some questions around and seem to have been very solid in difficult circumstances too.
Malachi Fekitoa, Scott mentioned him in the press conference, but he's a player that's really impressed me, very good defensively. I think he was the Defence Player of the Year a couple of years ago, so obviously can bring stability to midfield. Yeah,
and a bit of power and size, I think, which at Super Rugby level becomes important at times. He's a great worker, really good attitude, works very hard at his game. He's really wanting to improve and very hungry to do so. So he's still a young guy, still developing. But yeah, it was impressive for Auckland ITM Cup in a number of areas. And like a lot of players at a young age, he's got a few rough edges to try and smooth off, and we hopefully can do that sooner rather than later, and that can be an integral part of the side.
It's good to see Patrick Osborne fit. He's a completely different player now. You can put that to one side.
Yeah, I think he said that himself. Certainly through the ITM Cup, he felt that he wasn't concerned about the injury factor at all. It wasn't in the back of his mind. I think that relaxed him, probably allowed him to play his game, and we see how dangerous he is with ball in hand. He has some skills that probably other players don't have, a little bit of that X factor, if you want to call it that. But he's been really consistent too. He's been an important part of that Canterbury side, and they've used him a lot. So yeah, his form's been great.
It's almost a like-for-like exchange with Jose Guia, isn't it? Because you've lost that kind of player.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, similarities, certainly. Jose had been here and done it for a while and was probably at the peak of his career. Maybe that's one difference. I think there's still some room for growth with Patrick, but he's got all those athletic attributes that you're probably referring to on the wing, and that can be the difference at times.
Winston Stanley, he's drifted around, hasn't quite established himself as a super player yet, has he? But he gets a chance here.
Yeah, well, he was pretty good in the Force last season, when he appeared for them. Again, another really consistent player, high work rate, works very hard. Probably hasn't really stood out in one area or another, but he's very consistent in his play. And I think he's one of those guys that's a little bit of a glue in a midfield, and you need those players. And I think he's broadened his skill set in recent seasons as well.
He's got the breeding too, isn't he?
Yeah, well, that's right. That doesn't do any harm, does it? There's plenty of them.
All right, three half-backs. Every squad seems to go for three. Is that just because they get knocked around so much?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it now. It's an area that we're lucky because we've got three very good half-backs. We've got obviously the current All Black half-back, and then we've got a Fumiaki Tanaka who's probably the quickest distributor around, and then Frey Wilson he's had some injury problems in the ITM Cup, but his game's certainly come on as well, and he's become a far more consistent player too. So I think it's an area where there is a lot of attrition these days. Super Rugby, again, they get hammered around the 9 and 10 area. You can't really escape that. So they take a pretty big workload on defence, probably more so than years gone by. Our three, maybe Frey aside, are not the biggest halfbacks in the world. So it's nice to know that we've got three that are very competent and capable.
Three first fives for the same reason. Attrition has really hurt the Highlanders in the past, but a couple of them, well, they're all good goal kickers too.
Yeah, and our goal kicking stats were poor the season gone by. They really cost us. So that's going to be a vital area for us. So they are all good goal kickers. Possibly, one or two more consistent than the others. So that'll be an area of work. But slightly different in some respects too. Obviously we've got Hayden and Lima are younger, still developing players. Lima, super talented attacking player. That I think if people watch ITM Cup closely, I think he really focused on some other areas of his game. We saw improvements there, which was really encouraging. Hayden, good again, ITM Cup for Otago, very rounded in his play. Lovely kicker of the ball too. And then with Willie, we've got a guy who's been there and done it. He's run games for teams at high level before, and so that gives us a wee bit of rounding in terms of experience, and someone that we can probably just rely on if we need be.
Do you see Lima as a second five option at any stage? He seems to have some of the attributes that may suit their position.
Yeah, I suppose those attacking attributes we're probably referring to may be suitable to more than just second five as well. Even fullback comes to mind, but really he's a 10 for us first and foremost. We would see him playing there. I mean, you would never rule anything out, but that's not something that we're focused at this stage, no.
I mentioned again in the press conference, Otago players, and it's proof that if you perform at ITM Cup, you get recognised because the hard graft has paid off for them.
Yeah, and I mean that's always been the case. I mean we haven't, certainly as a coaching group, it's only the second year, but we've never set out to not choose Otago players or Southland players or anyone from the region. It's been a case of looking at what the performances, trying to predict what they're capable of at Super Rugby level, and if the players are here to do that, we pick them. A few more this year, and I think that's a great thing because they've stood up, as you said, for a couple of more seasons in a row, and so they've been included, and that's purely on their performance and their form, and in some cases, some potential for the future as well. The sort of people, good characters, I suppose is the way you'd put it, Tom. Sort of people we know are going to front up every time they put on the jersey. They're going to give high work rate, they're going to give their guts every time. Some of them might not be seen as the best players in the country in their positions, but they'll consistently be good and they're going to make it tough for the other guys.
It's a contrasting field. Last year, high hopes over superstars, now high hopes over young guys that you've invested in, the likes of Jason Emery and Sapawanga. If you put a couple of years into them, now it's time to pay it back.
Yeah, exactly. We realise that there'll be plenty of work to do because that's what you get with younger players and still developing players in some cases. But they bring enthusiasm, they bring desire, they bring the sort of attitude and character that we hope we will get through our selections. We probably felt that at times we didn't necessarily get that across the board in the season gone by, which was a major disappointment. And at this level, if you drop those standards, you get beaten pretty easily. So that's what we're asking for from those players. And I back again and say that might not be the best players in the world in their positions, but if they give that every week, and we are all focused on trying to improve those players throughout the season, then that's all we can hope for.
Very pleased that the Highlanders have given Richard Buckman a chance. He plays every minute of every game of Hawke's Bay, a pretty successful team. Can't make an impression at Super 15, but he's got a half chance here.
Yeah, and when you look through the stats, here's one of the highest work rates of an outside back in the competition, ITM Cup anyway. So again, that's that sort of thing we're looking for. He's a decent size sort of a player. He's got pace, he's got some power. He's done a great job for Hawke's Bay. And one of those guys that's sort of unlucky in some respects. He hasn't been looked at before, or sure he's been looked at. So we're thrilled to have him. And he's in the wider training group, which seems a little bit peculiar, but as we've all said all along, it's a squad of 37 for us. It's not a 32 plus 5 at all. And he's a player we see capable of playing week in, week out if he gets an opportunity.
And the way that attrition is, that those wider training guys do get game time.
Yeah, and that's part of our thinking too in the selection there. You want to have development players in your squad somewhere. Some franchises probably choose to have more of those in their wider training group, but we've got a number of those within our probably original 32, if you like. So the importance of being able to rely on those players when they're called upon, and as you say, that happens every season for every franchise. Now the game's just getting quicker, more physical, leads to more injuries. Players get opportunities, and so you want players that can do the job.
And Shane Christie, I haven't mentioned him so far. He's a guy that's plied his trade at Sevens and at ITM for some years. Yeah. He's now got himself a real chance of some good football time. Yeah,
I mean, he's been outstanding for Tasman. Been a very, very good footballer for a few years now, I believe, or we believe. And he's a leader too for them, which is another important ingredient for us in terms of on-field. So he sort of rounds off our loose forward group, I suppose. Specialist open-sider, but capable of playing probably on the blind as well if that opportunity arose. And the sort of hungry, hard-working player that we like.
You've got plenty of leaders. When you look at it, apart from the two vice captains, you've got Liam Coltman who's led Otago for a little bit, and Christie. So you're not wanting in that area at all.
No, and that's we've gone for the dual captain situation because it is a big call on one individual throughout a campaign. It's not the on-field stuff, it's everything else around that takes its toll. So as you're probably alluding to, the importance of having leaders throughout the squad is vital. And yeah, we feel like we've got quite a few. Some of them are young blokes, but they're actually leaders in their own right, and they'll get better as time goes on as well. And I think they've already got the respect of players around the country, which is also crucial. So we've got two outstanding individuals as co-captains, and then a number of other guys underneath that who are leaders too. So it's great. And this year, I suppose, as you say, people don't see so many flash names, so they maybe don't have the expectation, but it has to be there within the squad, because if it's not there, you don't produce the goods. So I think it will be, because these players are all pretty hungry to do well, and I don't know that it's prove a point or prove people wrong or anything like that. It's just a desire and a hunger to want to do well.